Good morning, everyone. We hope that you have a great time yesterday and today you're ready for a new days of the Realtion Expo 2023. My name is Jutasini and I am happy to welcome you again in the speaker hall today. To kick off, we are starting with the Investing in the Future, Generation Next, Building Wealth with Real Estate. Please give a warm welcome to our moderator, Elena Narbuts, Vice President and Marketing at MARFIELDS Group. Elena, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And welcome to Investing in the Future, Generation Next, Building Wealth with Real Estate. We have three distinguished speakers who will share their insights on how the real estate industry can better support the next generation of investors and how to adapt to the market changes. Today we have pleasure of speaking with Panicas Livadiotis, Managing Director of Lefteris Livadiotis and Sons Property Developers. Rixas Larkos, Founder and CEO of Proudbase. And Alkis Hajittofis, Director of Resolute Management Group, President of CFA Society Cyprus. Guys, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
So to start with, the traditional dream of owning a home with a wide fence is no longer of priority of millennials and Gen Zers. Today's young investors are looking for purchasers that align with their values, first of all. With advancements in ConTech, the prevalence of remote work and the availability of more flexible financing options, new opportunities are emerging of young home buyers to invest in properties that suits their modern lifestyle. We'll discuss today the support system for next generation of investors, talk about tech technologies, benefits, market shifts of young investors. So let's start with the support system first of all. The pandemic we faced a couple of years ago definitely accelerated the shift towards remote work, and even now when things moved back to kind of a level of normality, many young home buyers are still looking for more flexible real estate options. This is where the industry needs to step up and offer resources that will help them to be informed, to have some more investment opportunities and decisions that reflect those and align with their aspirations. Alkis, you're an investment expert with more than 50 plus years of experience in finance, including over the decades in investment management and fund management. Please tell us more. As part of support system, how we can achieve the implementation of quality financial education to support young investors.
Hello? Oh, it is on. Okay, good. First of all, financial education is very important in the correct functioning of any economy. In general, one of the things that's been noticed over the last few years, and there have been huge amounts of studies by governments and private organizations, they've noticed that there are huge segments of the population, whether it's age-based segments, racially based segments, gender-based segments, even geographically-based segments of individuals who are financially illiterate. That's the phrase that most people use. As a support system, at least in Cyprus, we can see that the government has created a committee to try and combat financial illiteracy, and it's headed by the central bank, the so-called ad hoc committee. And they have set a strategy, and they are now in the implementation phase. I believe, as an organization at least, some of my colleagues at Resolute, we attend presentations from at schools where we promote financial literacy. We discuss some core fundamental concepts which can then be transferred into life. Concepts such as saving, budgets, how interest works and it compounds, also how debt works. So these normally high school students are then able to step into life and help themselves by taking investment decisions where they understand. The financial literacy as a support system also works by correct labeling of financial products. Financial products also include loans. And so if someone understands that I don't have to go and take a loan from the bank that my mum and dad set up an account for me in when I was 5 years old. I can shop around. I can shop around for interest rates. I can shop around for terms, for length, for repayment terms, or I can even refinance my loan. This is the kind of financial literacy that we need to see. We need to see support. We need activities. We need information out there. And thankfully, it's being done.
It's happy that we have it in Cyprus, because during my investigation, I found out that actually some countries are often mentioned in the favorable environment for the next generation support, and mainly it's in the United States, Canada, Singapore. And we're still not in the map, but I think we are doing also a great job. Generally, you want to share also your thoughts in this regard, or?
I can share my thoughts, but first, Phrixos.
Yeah, Phrixos,
just
please.
a quick note that because unfortunately with some of the large financial events we've had in Cyprus over the past 2 decades, the 2000 stock exchange crash and the 2013 banking crisis, a lot of people have come to associate investing as some sort of gambling. So unfortunately, these acts against the financial literacy we are trying to achieve as a whole, and we need to teach people the difference between the two and how to actually, properly invest their money over the long term so they can see those returns and feel the benefits of it.
I wanted to say a few words about the correct labeling of products. The same way as going to the supermarket and trying to buy something to eat, and you don't know the correct calorie it has. The regulation now has to mention to you that this yogurt is 500 calories, for example. So it's not just the advertisement. The same should go for these products. It should be correct labeling where they can tell you exactly the risks. Besides just educating you, it needs to have it to be more transparent. So transparency is important, literal, the financial tools, and to go as far as to create small applications. Like on your phone, you have applications for trivial things. The next step is to have applications for people to be able to enter their own data and evaluate an investment, the return on it, and the risks. So even a small application on the phone, that can be another way of doing that. And the last thing I wanted to mention, you can create mentorship programs. So if people are not very sure how to go about this, to be people who want to mentor other people, but of course, again, to be regulated, not to just be taken advantage of.
Thank you. Exactly. For next generation, the most important is influencers are now is a must for them. They really follow them. So it's kind of a mentorship as well. And yeah, I totally agree. Let's go to innovative investment opportunities. Today, clients have an opportunity to invest in startups, in real estate, local businesses, social enterprises, and many more. Phrixos, since you are the founder of Groundbase, tell us more insights, because it's kind of an innovative opportunity. Which type of investment is the most in demand for millennials and for Gen Zers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the new generations, we see a few trends coming up and of what they are looking to invest in. Firstly, we see that they want to align their investments with their own personal values. And this is where ESG comes in, environmental, social, and governance investing. People don't want to invest in a company that will destroy their neighborhood or their country or the countryside that they live in. They are more aligned, and they're looking for investments in companies that are protecting or even contributing towards maintaining or sustaining these values that they support. The second thing we see is that they are looking a lot into high risk, high return investments with the rise of cryptocurrencies, NFTs, and the very easy access of these type of investments. Unfortunately, it's becoming kind of the norm for them to look for these high returns. And this is not realistic, unfortunately. And if you're looking for these high returns, it is most likely that you will fall into probably a scam or something that is it's just going to lose your money. So unfortunately, this is something that we need to go back into the educational aspect of things for people to understand what are realistic returns and what does it mean to take so much risk and volatility through your investment. That being said, from our end, we also see a lot of demand for startups. Again, that falls kind of in the high risk, high return aspect. But if you do it in a proper, regulated, and persistent way, then you can follow proper investment theory and see some returns over the long term. And at the same time, we also see this demand for real estate investing. Real estate has always been at the forefront, I think, for everybody to invest, because you can see it's something tangible, and there's an underlying value that's kind of hard to lose, even if the investment goes bad. But unfortunately, it has been quite hard to access. You would traditionally need to spend around 100, 200,000 in order to buy an apartment and rent it out. But with the rise of new technologies like crowdfunding that we are doing, then anybody can get in on this with a lot smaller investments of the size of like 500 euros.
According to your crowd-based website, your mission statement is connecting investors and visionaries to foster a more innovative future. And what is the most exciting real estate technologies can be offered them today?
We're talking towards the startups that they're out there. There are a lot of nice intelligent startups that are working with big data that they can potentially invest in. There is flexible co-working and flexible living startups that are offering a lot of opportunities out there. And hopefully through our platform, these would be accessible at some time in the future in Cyprus.
I wanted to say also a few things about these platforms. In order to facilitate the new generation, they need to have support. For example, virtual reality tours. So the older generation, they used to come and they wanted to go on the site and see the actual location of the project, to touch and feel, see other finished products. The new generation is mostly not convinced, is mostly interested to see what's a virtual tour. Show me the inside on 3D animation. So show me how it would look like. So people, the new generation, is obsessed with seeing things in a digital world. So to tap into this new generation, you have to be very fast in adapt and create this for them. You cannot just tell them, yes, take the aeroplane and come and I will show you this. They were not going to take the aeroplane. They just want to see it on the line, how it look like, in order to be facilitating these amazing platforms for this.
True, I couldn't agree more. And technology continues to change and challenge how we work and how the new generation work, live, and play. And I was surprised to find out that when in the UK they appointed the first minister of AI this year in the beginning, I was more surprised to find out that they were not the first in reality. The first minister of AI was appointed in UAE back to 2017. So they were the first, and I hope the trend will continue. So, Panicas, a question to you. With your experience over 40 years with different kind of generation, what, as the property developer, and you establish relationships with multiple generations according to the 40 years.
I'm not that old, but unfortunately, I Googled a few minutes ago with my colleagues what generation we are, and we're not, we are generation next.
No, we're millennials.
Oh, you're millennial. You guys, not me. I'm X.
So do you think...
older than you guys.
Do you think...
We're a different generation. Yes. So.
Do you think the mindset of future investors will differ from that of generation, the previous generation?
Yes. Yes, we realize that the new generation doesn't want to own an exclusive property. This is unlike the previous generation that they are dreamed to own a house, to own their own apartment. The new generation is mostly interested in the experience. Is this going to be a co-working space? Is it going to be a co-living space? So first of all, they cannot afford one easily. And because they cannot afford one, at the same time, they're interested in what access do they have in the co-working space, co-working living. So yes, we have to adapt and have a product for this new generation instead of trying to promote to them something doesn't apply to them. So that's the number one. Number two, we had to utilize virtual tools, artificial intelligence, in order to accommodate their questions. They're very savvy. They have a lot of questions. They don't just take one or two answers and that's it. They want to know a lot of information. And by creating these answers for them, instantly available when they are searching for them at 2 o'clock in the morning, then that's the solution. You cannot have an appointment easily with them to come at 11 o'clock in your office. It doesn't work like that anymore. These people, they want to be doing their own research online and if possible, to book online and pay online.
But I think currently in Cyprus, mainly the buyers are millennials, not Gen Zers yet.
Yes.
Probably
They're not in the market yet.
And I think also it depends on their family status, because as soon as you have kids, probably you even think to have a house with a white fence traditionally. Before, you don't even think about it and you prefer to enjoy.
You're right.
Let's briefly discuss quite controversial topic, investing in NFTs and digital land. The market of non-fungible tokens and digital land is still very new. United States, Singapore, and Estonia are dealing a lot with it. Whether local regulations, technology, infrastructure, and market demand can help the industry or destroy it. Alkis, please share your thoughts.
Okay, I've been given the interesting topic of NFTs, which, to be fair, I don't understand in any way because I typically invest in things which have fundamentals or underlying value. So I'd rather not answer that particular bit. With regards to regulation and whether I think that they can help digital platforms, the most common digital type of investment through real estate seems to be investment via tokens and tokenization of real estate, which I know that there's a panel on directly after us. So I hope I don't say anything to upset the guys that are in the room. I think that regulation can only help any kind of digital token. And the reason I say that is because anything that's not regulated ultimately may be seen by investors as being either dodgy or, somehow as a scam. I think that regulation will help tokenization. It will help it because it adds credibility. Credibility comes from having a regulated investment manager who has real estate staff who will be there to monitor the real estate with hands-on people, and you know who it is, and you have some kind of recourse against them in case something happens. Furthermore, there's a depository. So in the case where we recently saw FTX and we saw Binance, shaking at the moment, the key concern is, are people going to get their money back? Well, if your depository is regulated, as a bank is regulated, you know that you're at least covered up to a certain amount of money if they hold your assets. So that adds value. Furthermore, I mean, the more regulation, normally the more transparency. And this is a very key part of any kind of real estate investment. That's where we're seeing more democratization of information. Previously, if I wanted to buy a property, the seller would have a lot more information than me. And maybe one of the kind of benefits that millennials such as myself, I guess, we're millennials, we agree on this bit, have the benefit is that we can hire professionals to go and do a due diligence on our, prospective investment. Well, if you don't have the money, like many, let's say, Gen Z don't have that much, you'll go to some platforms like Elena mentioned earlier, social media, TikTok, and because that's all you can reach. So if you go to a regulated manager, you know that the person has done the due diligence on the investment. I think furthermore, I mean, in terms of tokenization, the only other point I'd like to say about it is that it will be good as long as there is some diversification value in it. To have diversification value, it needs to be linked to the underlying value of real estate. We've seen REITs in the past, and you know that REITs value, which is traded on an exchange, sometimes differs from the value of the real estate which it owns, and that's because there's sentiment involved. In the case that there is no link between the underlying value of the real estate and the token, I think that doesn't particularly have much of a diversification benefit to it. And also, I think that a second thing which is interesting and which we'll see in coming years as technology continues to improve in the sector will be whether or not there is liquidity and demand for these types of tokens. It's one thing saying that I'm going to buy, the town hall in Limassol or the shopping mall in Limassol and I'd like to have a share of it, and it's fantastic. I mean, you would, but you also want to know that you can somehow exit your investment if you would like to. So if there's no secondary market for these investments, there has to be some way that you can exit your investment. I would be very interested to see how this pans out in the future.
Do you see investing in NFTs or digital land as something that could replace traditional real estate investments altogether?
No, I don't think so. I think that obviously, as Panicos mentioned earlier, that people are kind of moving away from the direct ownership. I think this is kind of, it's a trend, but it's also a necessity too. If you don't have the money to raise, the minimum deposit on a loan, obviously you're not going to be able to buy. In the UK, we've seen some interesting trends where there's kind of co-ownership. So you'll buy 30% of a property and I'll own the 70%, you'll pay me rent and slowly enter the market. So I don't think that NFTs or digitalization will replace direct.
Can I say something, or maybe Frixus?
No, go for it.
One of the things, though, that we need to be very careful is now that I have 2 children and you see the reaction of the young generation, is that people can sometimes very emotional into purchasing and they can do the opposite of what you tell them. So it's sad to see people making decisions just based on the fact that their father did the opposite. For example, if somebody bought a plot in Hajittofis as their parent, the young generation says, I don't want to buy a plot in Hajittofis and I will show you what I can do. He goes online and he tries to buy a virtual piece of land because he wants to prove they can do it. This is a very important aspect. It's not financial literacy, it's psychological and it's emotional. So the young generation, we need to be a bit careful when you tell them no. If you tell them no, their brain says, let me show you. And the further may go into this. So yes, we realize that this virtual land and these things can be, now that they are unregulated and they are basically an assumption. But the young generation doesn't think so, and they might think, I will show you, and I will invest, and 2 o'clock in the morning, they sit and they try to buy something. So we need to be emotionally correct with them. How do we structure these negatives to them so they can take them positively and not take them...
And I think the support system, what we discussed initially, helps a lot to understand them, what they're doing.
Correct. You need somebody to explain to them, to support them, and not just tell them, don't do this, because the next thing we know, they will do this.
Mm-hmm. And just a last comment on this, I think the underlying technology that's used for NFTs and digital land is quite exciting and it can be used in many ways. But when we are trading into the area of investing, then you need to be quite careful. You need the regulation in order to ensure the safety of the investors and to ensure that the information is transparent and fair, is not misleading, that what often happens. And in terms of the role of these assets as a diversification for the overall portfolio of somebody, unfortunately what we have seen in the last crash and again rally of the market is that these assets are actually correlated. So they follow the same direction and actually they exaggerate the movements of the market. So it's more like you're investing with leverage instead of you are diversifying your portfolio.
Thank you. Today is a significant change of elite is taking place in the real estate market. New target audience of buyers are being formed and become a driving force. In MARFIELDS Group's client portfolio, we see its everyday changes according to our clients or audience we are working with. And the absolute dominant for them is the quality of housing, starting from the attractive facade of the building and ending with the modern engineering. They pay attention to the sustainable property, to proper solutions. List of services and brand for them also very important. and the location for sure. How generally we should sell to millennials and mainly, basically, because Gen Z are still, as we defined earlier, that they are still not the buyers. How we should do in order to reflect their needs?
Okay, well, you're right. You might have the amazing product that costs millions, that has a nice facade, it has a nice services, but the question that you will also receive from the millennial will be, does it have a carbon footprint? You say, wait a minute, I just told you everything that I have here for you, and you're also concerned about the carbon footprint, or you are concerned about the impact on the environment? Yes, so unfortunately or fortunately, we have to also adapt to their thinking process, and also include in our list or in our promotional material or in our specs things that are important to them, like if they impact the environment, what resources have been used to do this, and so they can hear also the things that concern to them. So this is, at least from my point, that one of the things they want to hear. Now, about the ownership, I'm not an expert, maybe the guys can answer, how to buy it in less money, maybe that will give us some more insight on that.
I can speak a bit on this from a personal note, as I'm getting to that age that I'm starting to look to buy my first home. I think a lot of us at this generation...
You come to me, okay?
Yes, of course. We are quite hesitant to get locked down into one property. We like to travel. We like to move a lot. We want our future to not be set in stone. And unfortunately, maybe buying a house in a set location, then you kind of feel like I need to be there. So we're looking for this flexibility, which is why I think a lot of us are delaying the process of buying, or we are looking more into rentals instead of buying a house early. Another area that's quite concerning is the affordability of apartments or housing in general, with the average salary or the starting salary for young professionals in Cyprus being so low, around the 1,500 euros per month range. Then you can see that's quite hard to save up to make a purchase of an apartment in the range of 150 to 200,000. So that's quite challenging, and I'm not sure how that can be solved in the future. And lastly, of course, we're looking for technology, as Panicos mentioned, and convenience in terms of looking at the apartments, exploring the opportunities, finding the right one, the information that we're looking for, and making the final decision.
I can mention something slightly different, and rather than just selling, I'll take the institutional point of view. So, I mean, one of the misconceptions normally is that the top level of institutions is the fund, but actually it's not. The top level of institutional investors are the pension funds, the endowment funds, things which belong predominantly to people who are in the audience, because we're all, saving for our pensions. They belong to students, they belong to various people. And so these organizations have started following a trend where they want to reflect the values of the ultimate investor, the stakeholder, the millennial, the Generation Z, as well as the baby boomer and the Gen X, now that we all know the groups. What I've noticed in interactions with investors is that the long-term investment makes a difference. So, like Panicos, I have a son, and so I am very much into investing in ESG, and I think that's something that millennials and Gen Z have in common, because we want to hand over a world to our children that is at least as good as the one that we inherited. I'm seeing that being reflected and echoed from institutional investors. I had a call last week with a huge institutional investor who was looking to invest in real estate in Italy, and their main concern was, what's the ESG element of this? So we're seeing that investors, another way that you can sell to them, and I speak now again as the fund manager rather than as the real estate guy, selling an ESG rated fund to a client who is managed by a millennial is very keen, because they look at things from a regulatory point of view. They'll see that there have been new legislations coming into place, like the Sustainable Finance Reporting Directive and EU taxonomy, which classify funds into ESG compliant, non-compliant, or fully compliant, which gives investors the kind of comfort that they're not being suckered in, they're not being scammed. They're actually investing in something which is truly a green fund and in line with their beliefs, and which also is not being greenwashed. So we're seeing a lot of that coming up now, and I think that, you know, much like the guy said, it's not just, you know, having the amazing product. You also have to answer a lot of other questions with belief systems like ESG and sustainability, whether it's your bricks are locally sourced and not shipped here on a container, or your cement is Cypriot.
For example, the very water we drink right now, you can see has a green cup.
It's not sustainable because it's still plastic.
Exactly, but it has a green cup.
But it's produced in Cyprus, so it's local.
The marketing company who made their logo, FinTech, they decided to put a green. It's more because in your mind, what does it give you? It's green. It's sustainable. So even it's a good example that everybody wants to address the green, even though it can be greenwashed. It doesn't mean it is. It's just they want to present it like that.
Nikos, can you tell us a bit more? So to continue, how the local market and developers can adapt to the new market reality?
The new market reality, actually, this is our discussion now. Is a future. Is for the future. So I would like to say that it's not yet a reality. I would like to, at least from my perspective as sellers, developers, and real estate people, this is not yet a reality. It's coming, but it's not our reality. It represents a fraction of our clients, a small fraction. They are not buyers yet. As you correctly said, they are not in the market yet. They are getting into the market. So it's a future that is coming. You have to adapt to it. But as a reality, we expect it in the next years. And that gives us, I think, it gives us some time to exchange information, adapt, separate the noise from the reality, because some of our concerns may be just noise and they will just evaporate on themselves. Sometimes the most important thing to do as a company is to hear the noise, but don't move all the time. You have to see if it's just gonna be smoke and just settle down, and then it's not gonna be a real worry. So this is my point on this. Wait a little bit to see. That's my number. Wait a little bit to see if these concerns, some of them will be evaporated or they will stay. And number two, that it gives us time to learn and adapt. It's not as we speak in our markets yet, at least in my industry.
Yeah, I can follow on that. I think, as Panicos said, there is some trends that I believe are here to stay. For example, embracing technology and the use of it in the real estate process. That either that being, buying a new house, right, renting, 100%. Investing, exploring, and all that. I think that's just embedded in our DNA nowadays. So it's going to be here, and we need to provide that to the end client in the way that they need it. So that's here to say. The other thing is, as we discussed before, we need to understand what the new generations want, and we need to adjust the offerings given those trends continue. We need to adjust the offerings so that it solves the problems that they have. That being, for example, that they don't want to buy, they want to rent. So maybe we need a more flexible renting scheme, a more flexible rent infrastructure, or people being more willing to rent their apartment instead of holding them and keeping them back and having 2-3 houses in Cyprus, for example, just for holidays. That could help the market, adjust the prices. Yeah, I think that's all for me.
Alkis, what role do you think government policies and regulations will play in shaping the future of real estate investing for the next generation?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting question. I think that the governments already have started implementing policies. One of the things we've seen a lot in Cyprus in recent years is the headquartering trend. So, I mean, the investment promotion agencies of Cyprus and various private organizations have done a fantastic job at attracting new investors. We've seen a lot of commercial real estate popping up in all of the main cities, I'd say. I mean, mainly Limassol, but I mean, there's a spillover effect in Larnaca and in Nicosia. And I think where this influences, you know, the future of real estate investing is the types of buildings that are coming up. So I work in an international organization, so much of my work is either kind of hybrid with sometimes a team member may be away or I'll be away. Occasionally it's working across jurisdictions. So I'll work a lot with a team in Italy or a team in Portugal. And so you want to gather people around in more, like Banikos mentioned earlier, you know, co-working spaces which are large and enable people to interact with each other. Furthermore, because of the tech element where you're having meetings with people abroad, you need a very highly tech-specific office. And so we're seeing a lot of that, I mean, coming in. The downside of this kind of investment which is coming in, which can be up or down depending where you are on the property ladder, is that there's a lot of demand for residential properties, and this leads to an increase in prices, as we've seen in Limassol, an increase in rents also. So this drives demand for residential properties as well, which is good if you're a developer, or bad if you're someone who's looking to rent. But this is the new reality, unfortunately, as it is, and I think that we need to also address that by providing more residential properties, because that's what the regulation and the investment policy is driving in Cyprus.
Totally agree. Frikis, you want to add something?
No.
So we don't have much time, and I want also to get some of your personal experience to finish our discussion. Could you tell us what inspired you personally to invest in property, and what was your first investment?
Maybe the generation who started like this. Yeah. Inspiring us to invest in property, first of all, as a vendor point of view, investing in property, we see it as a business and as a support system and as a contribution to our city, where unlike Limassol, we stay in Larnaca where there is more value for money and we can contribute a bit more. What inspired us is the changes we can make. Real estate can make a big change. Selling somebody something small, it can make him a change, but where he ends up working or living or operating, it impacts his life. So real estate either is linked with financial technology, either is linked with anything. The end value of real estate, it provides a home, it provides a coziness, is needed. So yes, in the end of the day, what inspired us is a very people-related industry. So it's here to stay, this industry.
And stability.
Yes. So this is for us the reason for investing there.
What was your first investment?
In real estate, a plot of land that you can build it into apartments. If that's what you are asking me, yes. So the word exit is very important. So the word exit, it means that when it shouldn't be linked with emotion. Emotion is a very dangerous thing in anything. If you're asking me on my personal, instead of being emotional with real estate, we are being thorough, smart, and transparent. So yes, if you have X amount of money and you can utilize them in real estate, and you know how to, you can buy. You can make a building, but if you don't know how, you might end up buying at 2:00 in the morning in a virtual land where you have no idea what's happening. So.
On my end, although I haven't purchased my first home yet, I have invested through real estate funds in the past, and I guess that kind of shows the change in the generational approach, that we are looking for that accessibility to be able to access the real estate asset much earlier before you save up 100,000 in order to buy your house. So these new technologies they are offering this accessibility for younger investors to get started faster, and I guess that's also part of the reason that we wanted to explore real estate crowdfunding on Crowdbase and offer people the opportunity to invest early on in potential development before they need to save up, hundreds of thousands.
Thank you.
Well, I'm kind of in between. I don't have as much of the entrepreneurial spirit as Panicos, but I've surpassed Frixos and managed to purchase my first house, which was actually my first purchase. What inspired me? I'd say my wife inspired me. She was a lot more savvy than I was. She very correctly said that we should buy a house, and men mature a lot later, I would say, than women. And so I thankfully listened to her. My first, however, real estate investment was actually in a fund, a REIT, which invests in telecom towers. So it is actually technically real estate around the world, and is actually what is known as a dividend monster. So it pays out quite a hefty amount of dividends on a yearly basis. I think one topic that I wanted to mention just very briefly, because I see the seconds ticking down. Panicos mentioned very correctly the topic of emotion, and it's always a dangerous thing, whether it's in real estate investing or whether it's in stock investing. One of the things that we do have in Cyprus, however, is also the culture of investing in real estate. We like to hand things down to our children. You like bricks and mortar because, it's physical. You can see it there. It's one thing to tell my son that here's some bonds, homologies, for those who remember when we used to get them as Christmas presents. But and it's one thing to give them, a plot of land or a building. So as Cyprus, we like to invest in real estate. We like to pass it on to our future generations. And I think that in closing, from my side, we will continue to see a lot more real estate investment.
Great. I think we've done. Thank you guys for sharing all your thoughts and professional advices.
Thank you.
And we'll be happy to answer any questions, but I guess already on our booth, if you have any, we're at your disposal. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.